I'm your host, Fatma Al Shirawi, and for 17 years, I've been unlocking the creative DNA of luxury brands across the Middle East, from high end retail to exclusive clienteling. I've seen how color psychology and strategy transform and transition into unforgettable experiences. Now I'm bringing you the secrets, the stories, and the science behind what makes customers crave your brand. Whether you're in sales, marketing, or building a legacy brand, get ready to rethink the rules. The Color Matrix program lets turn data into desire and vision into victory. Welcome, Liya Grady, to our show. I'm very excited to have you today, and I'm very proud of you being my student. We'll be talking all about Color Matrix program, your experience, your takeaways from this program. So the first question I have is, how did you get into the field of fashion and styling, and how did you start working with Wear That?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and share the experience that we've had working with the color matrix theory and with you. How did I start my life and my career in fashion? It's actually been a part of me since I was a little girl, to be totally honest with you. I've always been so inspired by fashion, by trends, by colors. I was always the one that my friends would come to and ask. They would ask me, to go shopping with them or clean their wardrobes. Or, it's always just been something that I've loved and I've had a passion for. But when I went to school, it wasn't something that I thought I would study, because I thought I had to be more serious and, do the more, technical professions. And somehow I still found myself falling back into fashion when I moved to Dubai several years later. First in beauty with L'Oreal. I worked for them for about 2.5 years, and then finagled my way into fashion, working with Fashion Forward, which was the original sort of platform that supported emerging fashion talent in the region. I was working with them on many different kind of roles and jobs related to both fashion and kind of developing that business. And then through that, I met Heidi Shara Armstrong, who's the founder of Wear That. I was so inspired by her vision, by what she was doing. And during COVID, we closed the doors of Fashion Forward, and I called her up. I said, Heidi, I want to know everything. I'm so intrigued by what you're doing. And one meeting, and she's like, why don't you just come work with us? And I started out as a freelance stylist. And from there, I've been with them now 5 years. And I'm now in the position of style director, managing all the stylists in the business.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I have also my personal story with Heidi. So it was interesting in just actually before COVID in 2019, because at that time I was working with all the Shalhoub brands. So they had sent her to me, and she was just starting the concept of Wear That. Mm-hmm. So we had a meeting to review sort of her brand and how to take it forward. And I love the idea because it was something very new for at the time, because everybody was very much about going to the store and retail. So the concept of, getting, first of all, professionally styled, then having the convenience of having the box come to you, picking what you want, returning what you want, especially for somebody like me who's like on the run, this is the perfect thing. I don't have to worry about shopping,
Absolutely.
And it's fantastic that when COVID started, and because people couldn't go anywhere, Wear That was the best thing that happened to us.
100%.
For us to give the satisfaction of shopping and joy and interacting with your own, and everybody had a personal stylist.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a luxury service anymore. And yes, and it's incredible that like years later now I trained the whole team. So I love my story with Heidi. Honestly, she's an incredible person.
She is. It's exactly what it's for. It's there for convenience. And when, living here in Dubai, we're all after something that makes our lives a little bit easier. The hustle is real. So I feel like, where that offers that opportunity for women to just really feel good, and look good, of course, with ease, because that's essentially what we try to teach our stylists and work with them on, is to ensure that they're giving their clients that experience.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
So now we'll go deep diving into the Color Matrix program. So for the audience, the Color Matrix program was a program that I developed 10 years ago. And I developed it because I was closely working with luxury brands and I was seeing the struggles. First of all, there was problem with communication between, I would say, head of marketing, the sales team, and also overall, sometimes the miscommunication of what the brand represented. So this is where I realized there is a gap, and I connected the gap between the different levels and departments in order to speak the same language, have the main ethos of their brand message directly towards the customers. The second thing with the Color Matrix programs is that it's not your ordinary program, because I first work with you as an individual. I find your strength. I want you to understand your personality through the color personalities and work with the colors to give you that confidence. The second part is understanding the brand identity. And then thirdly, it is how do you use these color personalities to interpret and see what the customer profile wants. And then it goes into experiences and all of this putting together in addition to adding NLP, which with color, we're talking about the unconscious mind, and with NLP, we're talking about the conscious mind, the dialogue you have with the customer. So overall, this is what I created, which became a very successful program. And within like our first project, there was like a 20% increase in revenue. So it's a very much sales-focused program. So Liya, now we want to know all about your 1-year experience being trained with Color Matrix and the different aspects of the color psychology, the emotional intelligence. How did it even help you with the process of styling for the customer? So can you share your overall experience with the program and what made you sort of crave to do such a program?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, of course. I think so for us at Wear That and as stylists, at the crux of our success is really knowing our client, understanding her and giving her what she likes, what she wants, what she needs, and also what we believe as experts are the right product for her. And, at the base of that is really understanding what she says she wants, but also what we see as something that would work for her, that would look good for her. And we're always on a mission to learn how we can help better understand our clients, the data that they give us. As you know, when you sign up for Wear That, you have to fill out a survey and you give us a lot of really useful information that helps us make really great decisions. But then ultimately it comes down to how we interpret that data. And I feel like the color theory was one of the massive steps that we took to help us better understand what information the client gives us and how we communicate with her. So that's obviously one of the most important things, is that we were able to, by learning this theory and having this training, we were able to get to really the core of who our client is. So whether it's from understanding what her features are, her color, her eyes, her eye color, her skin color, her hair color, and what that translates to in terms of what colors would look good on her, but also levels deeper than that. So into her psychology, into who she is, into the roles that make, that sort of work roles that make sense for her, or beauty makeup colors that look good on her, or fragrances that she might be interested in. So there were so many really interesting deep levels that we got into when it came to understanding our client, that helped us make better decisions. One, in terms of the product that we gave her, of course. And I'll go a little bit more into detail with that, but also in how we communicate with her, how we connect with her. So the type of communication, whether she's a dream light, for example, and she likes to, she's a little bit more calm and soft spoken, and somebody who likes like a more kind of demure type of, relationship, or is it more of the starlight, who's somebody who's a little bit more direct or outgoing or bold or brave. And so that helped us come up with even the tone of voice that we would use, all the way down to the product that we would give the client. So whether it's the silhouette, how it fits, or the color of the product, or the fit, or the, all of those things. So that's essentially at the core why this training has been so helpful for us from a B2C perspective. But then there are also so many, I guess, positives or great outcomes that came out of, the work when it comes to how we deal with each other. So one, how we understand ourselves, our own, color personalities, and how that can help us speak to our clients, but also how we speak to each other as teammates. So I think that's a really important key element. Also, how the buyers, the merchandising team, sort of categorizes the brands that we bring in, and how those help us, that helps us determine what brands make sense for what clients. So there were so many levels of really positive outcomes that came from this training that every single one of our departments really benefited from.
Yes, I always say I'm here to save money.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, because definitely when it comes to, see, that's what I love about the program is, number one, it's all about communication.
Yeah.
And it's very important, as you said, for the client to know their main core personality, but at the same time, now you're also able to approach them at different stages of their lives. So I remember, like in one of the clients' case studies, we were speaking about a person that had gone through a difficult time, and they were going through a transition, and they were starting a new job, and it was like a major shift from living a certain life for so long. But knowing what makes that person light up, knowing how to give them the right colors to even heal through the process, was so the emotional connection you have with the client is a completely other level. And this is what one of the stylists told me. She was like, I was so fascinated that this person came in so broken and left so happy and hopeful.
Yes.
So that is one part that I love seeing, always the transformation.
Absolutely. It's honestly, Fatima, this is why we do what we do at the end of the day. This theory has helped us get so much closer to our clients in a new way, in a different way that we didn't even know was an option, to be totally honest with you. Yes. Yeah, we've had so many clients come in thinking that, specifically when it comes to like workplace wear, and they have this idea that, no, it has to be black suits, blue suits, white shirts, gray shirts. And for some people that really works, depending on where you lie on the color kind of theory spectrum. But there are some people that were open to understanding that maybe they should be more in pastel colors. And when they tried them, clients that felt, just totally shocked that they would even feel like they could wear this color and that it would look good on them, Yeah. And I think these are, it's these small anecdotes that reaffirm how powerful it is.
So what were your expectations going into the program, and what were the outcomes after 1 year of doing this program, and how did it affect your role at Wear That?
Yes, sure. To be honest, I didn't really know what to expect. We had our individual our pre-meetings at the beginning, and it all sounded like it was going to be really quite helpful, but I didn't realize at the beginning the depth that we were going to go into. So I honestly thought it was going to be like, a few sessions around understanding what colors look good on our clients, and then that's what we give them. But when we got into conversations about how to accessorize these clients, what silhouettes to give these clients, how to communicate with the clients, or whether it was like they should be wearing silver medals or gold medals, all of these things, and also even around the detail of how certain colors have energies. So that was something that was really new to all of us. There is always, the trainings that we have done in the past where you kind of know that, this person looks good in these colors and this person looks good in these colors. But it was the depth of the information that was really so helpful for us. And honestly, I think the outcomes for us have always been around, we know that high customer satisfaction is correlated with increased sales. It's correlated with increased conversion, which is one of the ways that we sort of define our success. How many items a client keeps is always really important, because then you're doing your job well. For us, it's about selling whole looks, not just piece by piece by piece, because we want to offer that full, convenient service to the client. And so, through knowing these details and going into that much depth, we were able to offer an even more wholesome experience for the client. We've seen customer satisfaction improve over the year, which is great, between beginning 2024 versus end of 2024. The company has been growing, and it's all attributed to these these skill building sort of trainings and workshops that the girls are doing. And I think, this was one of the key ones that we did throughout 2024. And I mean, just anecdotally, the stylists are always telling me how helpful it is, how they're using it with their clients. So I think that alone is just a very interesting.
How did the program help you sort of focus understanding the relationship with the client in the color psychology and emotional intelligence in styling? So remember, like when we were doing the client profiling, okay, and we were looking at beyond just how they look and the colors and so forth, we had different scenarios. So remember when we had the scenario of a client who is a very common problem. Everybody loves wearing black. And how do you get that client out of the mindset that I'm not going to change my colors?
Yeah.
So that's the emotional intelligence part that we applied in the program. So how did you find that either as a challenge or a bonus in how to deal with the customer?
So yeah, I think you're always going to have clients. I would probably be the same, where I kind of already think I know what I want. We have different kinds of clients that come in, and we sort of segment them in different categories. And I think one of the segments that come in are the ones that are considered like help seekers, who are coming in strictly for, or not strictly for, but they just really need a transformation of their wardrobe. Their bodies have changed. Maybe they had babies. Maybe they're going through menopause. Maybe they lost weight, they gained weight. I mean, there's so many things we go through as women, right? And they affect us kind of physiologically. So these are conversations that we're having with our clients all the time, and they can be quite sensitive. Specifically when they come through, certain times in your life when you're a little bit more, that are a little bit more challenging, let's say. So emotional intelligence is critical, because you have to be able to be sensitive with the ones that need that. You have to be able to be direct with the ones that need that. And you also have to be honest and authentic, and also tell them, as experts in the field, what the right product is for them, their body shape, their style, colors, and all of these things. And I think that this is where the education from color psychology really came into effect and really started to help us when it came to how we communicated with them, because it allowed us to connect with them on another level that's kind of somehow backed by science, you know, and backed by statistical proof or data. I mean, you can speak about it better than I can, of course. You are the expert in it, but I think we came from a place of knowledge when we would speak to them. So it was like, okay, this is what we have identified as your color personality. This is why. These colors are beautiful on you. Try them on and see what you think. Tell us how they make you feel. And it was through that, so us sharing the information that we had, then allowing the client to get involved in the conversation, talk to us about how she felt, and that's how you build the trust with the client. So that's how we had to use it, and that's how we found success in it. Because at the end of the day, sometimes clients will come in and they're like, okay, I signed up, but I don't really know like who you are and what you do. And so you have to show them, not just tell them. You have to show them that you know what you're talking about. And it's these kinds of information and knowledge that help them to really trust you and build that relationship with you.
Fantastic. And it's very true, because I recently had a project where we were doing the interior, but we were also doing the branding. And I mean, this is very much far away from the fashion field. It's a more of like a serious, sort of a consultancy in business. And their main work is communicating with the client. So the owner wanted to have a very sophisticated look, and they wanted the uniforms to be black. And I was like, I mean, I had to like really struggle here. And I said, I'm sorry, but you will be blocking all communication with the customer, because they need to have the color blue for them to trust you, and at the same time have open communication. I said with black, they will think, yes, you're the best and you're the leader, but that's where it stops. You will have this sort of too much of a bold, authoritative approach that the person would be intimidated to ask a question. You know, so this is where we talk about the emotional intelligence application in very different aspects, but using color.
Yeah. And it impacts like how we dress sometimes at work. Because I know, for me personally, when I get up in the morning, I'm like, okay, so which sort of personality am I tapping into today? Who do I want to be, you know? And sometimes I'll wear like, I think once I saw you and I was wearing this bold orange suit, and you're like, Liya, take it off in the middle of the day. Otherwise you're going to start feeling really hungry. And and I was like, okay, I got to take it off soon. But I felt so good in it in the morning, you know? So I think it's really cool, interesting information that you use. Once you get used to it, you start using it without even thinking about it, you know?
Yeah, it just becomes part of your DNA. Like every time like people ask me, they're like, how do you get every outfit perfectly? And I'm like, because my brain is so programmed. And especially like when it comes to how do you mix colors. And that's important, because you're mixing sort of the emotions you want the person to feel. So you know, when you're mixing your yellows for creativity, your blues for communication, a pop-up red to just bring some excitement. So you can really play around with like how you want the person to feel towards you.
That was like one of my favorite, I think, modules was when we talked about how to mix and match colors using, you know, the color wheel, and how that impacts exactly how you can create sort of like a cocktail of emotions just by, and that presence that you bring into a room just by what you wear.
Yes.
Which is so
exactly. Cool. Right. Can you give us an example of how did this program help you in a specific scenario with a client when it came to their interaction and communication? Like, what was your, I would say, like a client where you had an aha moment and realized how powerful what you're just practicing with them just came to life?
It was probably with one of my more challenging clients. I'm not going to name any names. She's wonderful to work with, but definitely somebody who knows what they want, and kind of already knows what they like, and works in a bit of a formal corporate environment, government institution. So kind of, specific in terms of how she should be dressing, and what colors she should be wearing, or in her mind, what colors she should be wearing. And I think, with this client, I started out sending her more what she wanted, because I felt like I needed to build that trust with her and allow her to feel like, okay, she gets me, she knows what I like. And I started with this client during the time that we started our training program. So I was still a little bit of I was still learning. And so I was actually somehow using the information as I learned it with her. And it went initially from her liking the items that I sent her, but kind of being like, I already have so many similar things. I don't really want to buy so many similar things. I'm not really that interested anymore. And for me, that's like, I can't. When a client doesn't want to work with me because she thinks I don't get her, it's like a stab in my heart, because this is really complete opposite of what we try to achieve as stylists. And me personally, what brings me so much joy in my work. And so I was like, no, don't worry. I got this. You're going to get everything you want. And I'm going to give you things you never even thought that would look good on you. And just wait, give me one more chance. And I ended up basically kind of taking her out of what she thought she sort of was, in terms of she didn't know much about color personality, but how she thought she should dress and how she thought she should present herself, which was in these muted colors, into actually what her actual personality was, which was like a very strong dream light. So she should have been wearing suits that came in, more pastel colors, or, whatever it was that represented that personality. And I ended up sending her things that were the silhouettes that she needed, but in, the colors and the styles that were actually right for her, that gave her, the right energy that she needed to have in this new role. I forgot to mention that she had also just had babies. So I think she just wasn't really sure what looked good on her, what fit her. And I was able to use my understanding of, this color psychology and what we had learned with you to dress her top to bottom. Honestly, I was able to get her the right bags, the right accessories. It was minimalist, given, the environment that she was in. And she went from being a client that was honestly not really sold on what I had initially gone in with, to being so happy, wearing the outfits, sending me photos, and has been a client ever since. And I think there's no other really good, example of how you can transform someone just by understanding them better.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes the dreamlight personality gives off a starlight personality, because they're very much about they're very perfectionist when it comes to their style and quality, but at the same time they're also quiet. They need time to trust you, to open up with you.
Yes.
So the way you applied it is that you showed her she can trust you without saying that she can trust you,
Exactly.
through like getting into her psyche. Yes. And interestingly about this, one of our case studies when we were students was I had defined a personality which I thought was spot on, a firelight, starlight, okay? And even the features were like very clear starlight. But then when we did the color analysis, she turned out to be a dream light. And that's when I realized, like, she was a firelight, but a dream light. Yeah. And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, it's amazing how when a person wants to be a certain persona, they unconsciously start dressing, thinking, choosing colors that is the persona they want, but actually it's not. So many people find it like very confusing that how do I know that this person is not a particular personality? Mm-hmm. Because first thing I would look at, if they're a starlight, okay, and they're, for example, they're not a starlight and they're wearing black, I can instantly see their skin tone is gray, their dark rings under their eyes. It's not their color. And also, in terms of sometimes I can see there's a warmth in their personality. There isn't that aloofness that a starlight has.
Yeah.
So I know there's that warmth that I'm like, I know that they're pretending to be a starlight, but they're not, you know? Of course, this takes like years of experience to like spot on these underlying kind of things. But
that's kind of what happened with me because, you know, initially when we met, you're like, you're a firelight. And I am. But then when we spent a year together and we did the analysis and you're like, your colors, your features actually are morning light. And then it all really like, it started to make sense, you know. It was really an interesting, and I think with all the girls, that was such a fun part of the training when we got to do it on ourselves, when you did it for us. Because what I've noticed also with them is like, we've all sort of taken on the advice and we bring it up in conversation, and you know, someone walks in, someone who's a starlight, for example, she's like, oh girls, you know, how do you like me rocking my black you know, it's just become normal narrative for us, you know.
It's a language. It's honestly, it's a language. And it was funny because in the office, this used to be the funniest moments I always used to have with my assistant. Like sometimes she'd tell me, okay, you have a meeting, and then she would like hint to me, she's like, by the way, they're like a starlight, by the way. So I would know what I'm getting myself into, you know what I mean? Totally. So it's funny. So people start speaking that language, but I always say like all the personalities are unique and special in their own way. They have what other people may see as something negative that is actually something like positive that we require in different situations. So true. So nobody is better than the other. No. All four personalities are good.
Yes, absolutely. Just on the topic of like clients, I remember when we had the course together and you had basically given us the homework where we had to create a box. I think it might have been for one, like for each other, like we had to style each other, and and you were my client, and that was like the biggest success for me because you were channeling your dream light at that stage, and I had created the box, and then we ended up trying everything on after, and you're like, oh, I'll take this. I was like, yes, I got it.
No, absolutely. I remember even one of the exercises that one of the, like, I think each one of you also had to style a box with all four color personalities. And I remember you had done the dream light one, and then after like class I was like, okay, Liya, I want that whole collection.
This is it. Yes.
So yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, now I want to go deeper into sort of looking at it from a sales perspective. So in this year, did you notice how it affected the revenue or how it affected the number of clients that you had over the years? Did their pattern change in any form after applying this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, since our time working together, we've been able to, from a marketing perspective, like present something new. So whether it was when we had events where you came in and did the analysis on our clients, the full analysis, this was something that always brought in new clients. We always noticed an uptick in interest when we would incorporate, you coming in to do these analyses, or, when we were able to say, come in, get your, we would present it as like a mini color consultation because we didn't reach, the level of expertise that you're at, where they would come in, they would get analyzed. And that was always something that would bring in either existing clients that maybe that had churned, we call it, that haven't been around for a while for whatever reason. It was something that sparked their interest and they would come back or they would request a box. So that's definitely something that has sparked increased interest every single time we use, we discuss it or talk about it or, kind of bring it up from a marketing perspective. Definitely 100%. It's just something new that they see that they're intrigued by. And I think, as you know, the trends on like TikTok and Instagram, everyone's talking about like what colors look good on us. So as stylists, we have to know. And we do now, thanks to you.
Amazing. Yeah, that's true. This whole revival, I call it, of color analysis.
Yeah.
Like even with me, I've been getting so many clients for the color analysis because they're like, we've seen it on TikTok, and the first thing they search is somebody in the region, and then I pop up. So it works very well. But speaking about the marketing perspective, how has it helped also the marketing team? I would say by understanding this theory, how has it helped the marketing team in creating campaigns and creating sort of a digital, unconscious, emotional connection with the audience? How has that progressed?
So I've worked really closely with our styling team and our marketing team to kind of figure out how to incorporate this communication. I remember, I'm not sure if you remember, but in one of our sessions, we took your color, sort of analysis and theory, and we incorporated it with our own style types. So we normally, before we did this theory, we would try to better understand our client's style type or style aesthetic through the information that they would give us on the survey when they would sign up, or just by chatting with them and seeing what inspiration they like. So we've been able, as a company, to really take what you've taught us and adapt it to our ways of working and our ways of thinking and our communication and our marketing to further segment how to speak to clients. So rather than sending out umbrella messages, we've been able to kind of identify, okay, with this group, more so segment the communication so that there is ways to speak to each personality and each color, I don't know what you want to call it, like
the color group.
Color group. And then, so using our information that we know about our clients and what we know about each color group, we can create communication, we can create inspiration boards, we can create editorial shoots. So sometimes you'll even notice in our shoots, you'll see four women, all with a specific personality, and that's defined by their color group. And even the setting of where they are in the ad will be defined by their color group. And it just makes it, what was amazing about it is it just made so much sense with the way that we already somehow understood our client, but we couldn't maybe eloquently categorize it, if that makes sense.
What I have seen is that a lot of the times they always, like, the companies always complain that we don't know how to get to the client, or we don't know their profile of what they want. And I always tell them everything is right in front of you. You literally know exactly what the client wants. And I agree with you from a marketing perspective, and especially digital marketing. The rule is that everybody's your client. No matter what color, personality your business is, everyone's your client. So you have to learn to categorize how it. Now, when we're looking at a digital perspective, we are looking at not only the look and matching these colors to the personality, you're looking at the background also.
Of course.
Because like, for example, a firelight, okay? They're very much about the cultural aesthetic. They're very much about sustainability. It's also the fabrics they'll be wearing. And they're very much about big, bold prints. So when you're making a post or a campaign, you have to consider so much more when it comes to styling for that. And the recent campaign that you did for the spring collection, which I loved, and I loved your outfit, so I'm definitely getting that.
Oh, yay, thank you.
So this is where, what was nice about it, yes, you were in the spring palette, but then within the spring palette, you showed how a firelight, a starlight, a dream light, and a morning light can wear the spring palette. Each one in their own way. So like, you and I have a firelight element.
Yeah.
But the way you wore that printed dress with the jacket was a very firelight thing, you know?
Yes.
But it was in a spring, you know, sort of vibe.
Exactly.
So it's very important to look at the overall aesthetic and not just the color and style that we're looking for.
100%.
And also like the message. So that campaign, which would have the firelight with all these elements, would also come with a message of how sustainable the fabrics are, or proceeds of this collection goes to a certain foundation.
Exactly.
You know, and that is what it's like the trigger to a firelight. They're like, yes, I want to go buy this, because you just spoke to them to what attracts them.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that this is the next level it goes into, the marketing perspective.
Yes, and like, because it's become we do it without even thinking now. We know that we need to have sort of 4 kinds of women that we're speaking to, and we know that we need to communicate to them in a certain way. And I think like today, hyper-personalized messaging and communication, hyper-personalization in general is everything. It's the way to any client's heart, because we are being bombarded with messaging all the time, all over the place. And so you really want your brand to feel like they get you. This kind of theory and this way of thinking is one of the ways that you can, you know, really speak to their heart in a language that makes sense to them.
Exactly. And one thing to also consider in this aspect is that the customer nowadays has so much information, is very knowledgeable, and they're very also clear into what they want.
Yeah.
You know, like now they're not willing to accept that, okay, there's 5 designers that only have what I want. Now, no. And now it's so accessible. Everything is online.
Yeah.
So if they can't find a brand in their region, they'll go order something in another region that suits them. So having that vast sort of accessibility also makes it difficult for the fashion labels to try to like grab that loyalty from the customer.
Yeah.
So here, when you know every type of customer, you're not going to lose. You know, you're going to find, whether it's you're finding your niche or whether it is adapting your product to your customer, it's a win-win situation.
Yes. Yeah. And it keeps the human element really authentic, because anything you want, you can also look it up on ChatGPT. We know that, right?
Yeah.
So this sort of knowledge and wisdom makes us, it keeps the personal element. It keeps the client wanting to stay engaged with us, as opposed to go anywhere else to find the information.
Yeah, and I did a test when I like first graduated. I actually listed down all the designers I always used to buy. And then I looked at why I was buying from these designers. And a lot of the times, for me, storytelling is like the way to my heart. So a lot of the times it was the story and the journey and the process of creativity of the designer that made me loyal to them.
Yeah.
And then as like, of course, like I grew older and sort of my humanity was more focused about being authentic in how I represent myself, then I was drawn more to what were they doing for society? How were they giving back? How were they being responsible? You know, so as we know, all the scandalous campaigns in the past couple of years that went on with these luxury brands, you know, it really hurt them, because you see, they weren't sensitive to the customer. They were just thinking, I want to be loud and seen. Yes, you can be loud and seen, but then be loud and seen in a way that the customer accepts and acknowledges.
Of course, that's relevant. Yes.
Yeah. And also this theory makes you think out of the box.
Yeah.
You know? So a lot of the times I have clients that come in and they're like, you know, I don't want to be restricted with specific colors. And I tell them, I'm like, you're going to have 150 hues of colors to wear from.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so you're totally good. You're good there.
It's so true. Yeah, that's so true.
The next question would be, what are the habits that now have become part of your routine, whether it's applying to yourself or applying it at work, that is now no longer non-negotiable for you, like for you to compromise in any way now that you understand yourself and the client and the way the ethos of the brand is? Like, what is that non-negotiable thing now that you will not compromise after this experience?
Great question. So I think I touched on it a little bit before, but before kind of going through this training, we would simply, or in a more simple way, try to understand our client based on their style type, so, or their style aesthetic. So it's like either you're a bit more artistic creative, or you're a little bit more modern chic, or you are classic traditional. We have like these 7 types that are sort of like general archetypes of style that help us kind of choose what works for somebody. And so when we got this, really like we got into the second layer of understanding clients, we've been able to take both of them and come up with a non-negotiable sort of matrix that says, okay, so if she's these style types, she's likely this personality. So let's take this color group or this color personality. So let's take those colors and see how they work on her. So we've been able to integrate it with our framework and how we originally thought about clients, elevate that framework into an even better and stronger and more in-depth framework to make better decisions about our clients. And that's something they're using every day with every client, because it's been incorporated into, how we read the information and how we digest it to understand their style type, their color group, and then ultimately make decisions on what we should give them.
And that's an interesting point to make, because also to clarify actually to the audience that when it comes to the 4 color personalities, then you have your subordinate personalities. And this is where what you're talking about, the combinations that you have, which can vary.
Yes.
So a lot of these combination also at, I would say, another level goes into the region that your client is coming from.
Yeah.
So they're very common combinations for different regions. So just an example of the combinations that we have. So majority of, like, say, the Middle East, Mediterranean have the firelight base as their main personality, but then their subordinates vary, and this is kind of like the small percentage of, I guess, the descendants they have. Which that's why I always make a joke. I'm like, before there was the DNA descendant test, I'm like, we knew your descendants way before that. So, and it was interesting. I actually had my best friend who is from Lebanon. And I never knew this, that her great grandparents were German, and I never knew that. So when we did her color test, she turned out to be a firelight because she was from the region, and her subordinate was a morning light. And I was like, how do you get the morning light, And then she was like, well, it could be because my great grandparents were German. And I was like, it's amazing how it came into the thing. So each personality has a specific region it belongs to, and mostly it has to do with the features, certain behavioral patterns. So it's interesting. I've always been very connected with Paris, and very much. I even feel comfortable in the colors with the brands there. And I have a Dreamlight subordinate. So the Dreamlight is very much Europe and France, and the colors are very Dreamlight, with the light blues, the pinks, the light greens. These grays. So very much, and So apparently, I do have some Parisian descent.
That's what's so cool. I think that's so interesting, because we'll also notice sometimes, like, you'll have an idea of what someone is, and then they're traveling somewhere in the summer and it happens to fit perfectly with, what you've identified, and you're like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. It's just it's really like the light bulb really goes on when you get someone right.
Yes.
And it's almost like a surefire success.
Yes. And okay, now that we've talked about the combinations, let's finally talk about when it comes to applying this in the buying section. So how has it helped the buyers understand what they need to buy in terms of for the region, and at the same time how to work with, for example, stock that, because of course with certain brands, like, you're restricted to select. Sometimes they give you like a certain group of things and that's what you have to sell, correct?
Yes,
and
course.
I have experienced this all the time with the luxury brands. They're like, this is the stock given, I know it's not relating to the region, but we have to sell it, we don't know how. So how has this helped the buyers? Number one, in the selection process, and at the same time, has it helped from a financial perspective to save money when it comes to them?
So I'm not on the buying team, and actually we need you to come back, Fatima, because we have some new people on the team.
Okay, great.
But I have some really interesting insights here. So we are lucky because we get to choose the stock we bring. It's not that we have like a headquarter brand who's dictating to us that this is what you have to sell now. So we decide what we bring based on our data. We've been in the business for 6-7 years now, and we have a really good understanding of what women in the region like, what colors they like, what silhouettes they like, and what they are buying, essentially. And you can take those patterns and associate them with personality. So it's sort of like working backwards. So we've been able to, like you said, we have a lot of firelight in the region, Dreamlight as well. So it's been interesting to see the patterns in what we have seen bought in the past and how they associate with color groups and personalities, color personalities. It's really kind of similar to what you mentioned before. So it's being able to say these brands, for example, Farm Rio, Kivari, Corylin, tend to be brands that Morning Lights and Firelights are going to be more interested in. And we know that this percentage of our, sort of base falls within this color personality. So let's make sure that we have these brands that we can, make sure that will be for these women. Whereas, other personalities, what brands make sense for them, and then making more decisions on whether we bring those in, whether we cut them based on who our clients are. So that's been one way that they were able to kind of use it and categorize from a brand perspective. And probably the most interesting way that we've been able to use it to date. I think for us, the opportunity here is much greater, to be totally honest with you, because you can look at materials, you can look at fabrics. There's, things that are trending, like lace, for example. But how much lace should we bring in? Lace is something that, the Dreamlight loves. But, how many of our clients want that? So I think while we have used it, I'm probably aware that we've only scratched the surface, to be totally honest.
Yeah, and speaking of like that specific example, like if you had someone who's a combination of a Dreamlight Starlight, you could get the lace but get it in black.
Exactly.
So it's easy. You're still using what's there, but it's just you get it in the color or like the shape that they would be inclined to wear.
Exactly.
Great.
Yes.
Right. So what would you say to someone who hesitates doing a training program of something unique, because this concept is very new, so sometimes I do get people who hesitate to do this. So what sort of advice you would give them for somebody who is afraid to do this training?
Learning is everything. Knowledge is, it's so important to our growth as individuals and also as, career-oriented, ambitious humans. So I think at the very, very crux of it, I think that's the most, that's something to really keep in mind. But I would say to you, Fatima, if you're dealing with someone who doesn't know or isn't totally sure, just do it on them. Just practice it on them, and I'm pretty sure they'll be convinced, because it makes sense, and it clicks, and it's made a difference, for our company and our business. And I think the thing is, like, nothing is black or white. So anything, just like we were able to take so much of what you taught us and adapt it to our business and how we think and how we learn, that's where the magic is. It's not just textbook copy and paste. We have to use our minds and our brains and our know-how and our skill sets to take what we learn in these trainings and make them make sense for what we do and, the ultimate outcome of our business. And I think, the color theory in general is meant, it's a way to understand people's psychology. And there's no better way to sort of connect with a customer than that. So there's actually only value that you can gain from it.
Amazing. And one last thing, this is more on a personal note. So after doing this program, what changes did you see in yourself? And what changes did you see in communicating with people around you?
Honestly, quite a bit with myself, to start with, because I felt like I took like one of those really interesting personality tests to know myself better. And so I just understood. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to kind of really get to really knowing who we are. And I think as a firelight, being authentic to myself is so important to me. So for that reason alone, it was like a light bulb had gone off in my head, and I was like, okay, so these are the personalities, the color groups that I'm part of. Let me try it. So I would think about how I would dress in the morning. I thought about, where I really enjoy going. I thought about the books I like to read. I thought about my career. It gave me a chance to get to know myself better and align my life with my values in a way. And I know that sounds like kind of deep, but we're all on our own journeys to get to know ourselves better. And I think this for me came out of, I was like, okay, I'm doing this for my work and for my business and for my team, but it ended up being such an individual growth for me. So I think that, and I also had fun doing, doing the tests on my husband and on my friends. You realize, you get to learn more about the people around you. And I thought that was really cool because, and at the end of the day, you know someone better, you have a better relationship with them, right? Which is really important. So I would say that's probably where it's made like a massive difference for me.
Amazing. And I've seen the change in you because like initially you have so much responsibility and like whether it's at work or even at home and with the kids. And at the beginning, I used to see you always very anxious, always very tired. And as we were taking the different stages, I was seeing you open up. Yeah. And like now, I've seen a major transformation because, as you said, I feel you're very comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. You don't sweat the small stuff. I've noticed that, definitely a big change when it comes to that. I don't see you like as stressed. You're like, okay, I'm here, and you're very present in your time.
Thank you.
And what are the comments that you have got from the people around you? Oh. Like the changes they've noticed in you.
Thanks to you, all of this, by the way. It's funny because today sometimes you're running and you put on like things that you just put on whatever. We know that happens with everybody. But today I made a conscious effort. I combined my firelight, my morning light, in terms of like my jewelry. I put it on and I got to work and I honestly was like, oh my God, everyone is complimenting me and kind of like looking at me in a different way. And I was like, and it was just a little reminder to not let these things slip because they make such a big difference. But yeah, I would say probably, people have noticed a calmer energy about me. So basically, essentially what you said, probably a little bit more confident. And I have completely changed the color palettes and even the prints. I used to like overkill on the prints. I love prints. We know that about me. But I kind of started choosing the ones in the palettes that make more sense for me. And it's been a lot more, it's just more appealing, like I'm brighter. Yeah, I'm not so tired. And even when I want to wear colors that don't fit into my categories, I know how to like break it up with the accessories and these things are things that people have definitely picked up on because I've just heard it more recently that I am just giving off, just maybe like a little bit different of an energy and I'm a little bit even internally more focused on my priorities. And I think that's really been helpful.
And have you tested out on the kids of how to get them to do what you want by putting them in colors?
Of course. I mean, I try as hard as I can. One is 7 and she's already picking out her outfits every day. The 3-year-old is also on her way, so I'm trying my best. But yeah, no, and they always have really, they actually compliment me when when I'm wearing things that, fits with my style, my color personality, which is really sweet. They're girls at the end of the day, so it's important to them.
No, that's fantastic. And I'm very happy listening to you speak about like the different stages of you going through the process of color matrix and how life-changing it is, how it helps you even personally grow as a person.
Yeah.
So what is next for you? What is the next sort of thing you want to learn and grow in your life, in your field? What is the next steps?
That's a good question also. I think for me to continue to evolve and to continue to be able to use these learnings in new, insightful and innovative ways is on like top of mind, and how I can bring that to my team, bring that to the women that I work with, having more meaningful conversations that are very personalized with the people that I work with, but also, even in my personal relationships, and continuing to get to know myself better. I also think a lot about like experimenting. So there's probably parts of, the color theory, probably colors I haven't really experimented with. I think that would be something I would want to do, or styles or patterns or silhouettes, because ultimately we tend to fall back on also what we're used to, like our habits. So I think it would be more like challenging myself to continue evolving with everything that we've learned is a big one. Yeah, and then, taking it to other parts of the business or the, other departments where we can see growth. I think that's an interesting one as well. And yeah, through my journey as I grow, I mean, I think it's something that it doesn't stop at the workplace,
Thank you so much for being with us, sharing your experience. And it is truly an honor for me to see this transformational change. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing journey, and I look forward to the rest of it.
And that's a wrap on today's Chromatic Connection. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their brilliant palette of insights with us. If this conversation sparks something in you, hit subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who'd love to add more color to their perspective. Until next time, remember, life's too vivid to stay monochromatic.